In a previous exercise, I added animations to manage transitions between two activities. I was left with a crossfade going in one direction and a slide going in the other. But what if I want a slide animation for both transitions? On one level, it's a pretty easy thing to do. All I'll need to do is make a copy of the transition from the detail activity and paste it into the main activity. So I'll go back to my code, and notice now that I'm working in a project named Custom Slide. It's a continuation of the previous project. I'll go to my detail activity, and I'll go down to the bottom of the code, and I'll select and copy the code to override the pending transition. This is the code that's using the slide animations. Then I'll go to the main activity. I'll search for Start Activity, and the one I'm looking for is right here. And I'll select this transition, I'll delete it, and I'll paste in the version from the detail activity. And then I'll run the app again. Now I get a slide when I go to the detail activity, and when I touch the back button, I go back to the list. But both of the slides are in the same direction. This is doing exactly what I asked it to do in my programming, but it just doesn't feel right. When I go from the main activity to the detail, I'm adding a layer, and when I return, I'm removing that layer. So it just feels like the slides should go in both directions. But it turns out that the Android SDK only includes animations to go in one direction, sliding in from the left and sliding out to the right. And if I try to just go look for another animation, it isn't there. So I'm going to solve this by creating my own custom animation XML files. I'll go to my resources folder in the project window, and I'll create a new subdirectory that I'll name anim for animation. Now I'm creating a view animation, and in an earlier chapter I described that this is where the XML files need to be placed. Then I'll right-click on the anim subfolder, and I'll create a new animation resource file, and the existing file is called slide in left, so I'll name the new one slide in right. And I'll add the .xml extension. When the file is first created, it has a root element named set. Now, to figure out what the content should be, I'll go back to the main activity class, then I'll hold down the Command key on Mac or the Control key on Windows, and I'll click the ID of the animation. And that takes me to this XML file, slideinleft.xml, that's a part of the Android SDK. I'll select the child elements inside the set element. I'll copy that to the clipboard. Then I'll go to my custom animation, and I'll paste the code in. Then, to reverse the direction of the slide, I just need to change the value of from x delta from negative 50% to positive 50%. And that's it. Now the slide will go in the other direction. Now I'll do the same thing for the slide out. I'll go back to the main activity. I'll Control or Command click into slide out right. I'll select and copy just the child elements out of the set. I'll copy that code. I'll create another new animation resource file that I'll name slide out left. And then I'll paste the child elements inside the set. And once again, I'll just reverse a value. This time I'll change the 2x delta, and I'll change it from a positive 50 to a negative 50. So now I've created my two custom animations. To use them, I'll go to my main activity class again, and I'll change this code where I'm calling override pending transition. For each of the two effects, I'll remove the Android prefix, because now I'm using files that are a part of my project. And I'll change the ID that I'm calling. For the enter animation, I'll use slide in right. And then for the exit animation, again, I'll remove the Android prefix, and I'll change this to slide out left. So that's all the code I needed to change. Before I try to test this, I'm going to uninstall the existing app from my device. The reason I'm going to do this is because with the new instant run capability of Android Studio, there are certain times where making changes to various resources can cause crashes in the application. So I'll go to my application list, I'll locate my app, H+ Sport, and I'll uninstall it from the device. Then I'll go back to Android Studio. Notice on the toolbar that the stop button is now disabled because Android Studio detected that the app had stopped. And then I'll clean the app to make sure that everything is being packaged correctly, and then I'll run the app on the device. And this time, when I select an item from the list, I slide to open the detail activity, and when I touch the back button, I slide back in the other direction. I'm loading a detail and then removing it. So by simply creating my own custom animations, I can now control the direction of the slide, and I based my animations on existing animations that were a part of the Android SDK.